Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always ready to jump into a new case.
Well, get ready for a real head-scratcher.
Oh, good. Those are my favorite.
This one takes us all the way back to Toronto in 1947.
Okay, setting the scene. I like it. What happened in 1947 Toronto?
A young newlywed named Christina Kettlewell was found drowned
Drowned. Where?
in a shallow pool of water, no signs of a struggle or anything.
That's suspicious right off the bat. So, what do we know about Christina?
Not a whole lot before things get really complicated. We've got some personal accounts, inquest testimonies, and even whispers of hidden relationships.
Ooh, sounds juicy.
It really is, but we got to start at the beginning, right?
Of course, lay it on me.
Well, it seems Christina's life was pretty ordinary before all this drama unfolded. She grew up in Toronto, worked as a bank teller, the usual stuff.
Normal life, got it. So, what was the catalyst? What sent her life into a spiral?
Well, that's where Jack Kettlewell enters the picture. Her boyfriend and our first step into the tangled web of this case.
Okay, boyfriend. Love usually complicates things, that's for sure.
And let's not forget his best friend and roommate, Ronald Barry.
The best friend. Always an important character in these stories. What was his role?
He was the one who stuck by Christina while Jack was off serving in the armed forces.
Seems like a good friend, at least on the surface. But was he? Things are never that simple in these cases, are they?
You got that right. And things get even more complex when you throw in money. A lot of money.
Oh. Money always adds another layer of intrigue, doesn't it? Tell me more.
Well, Christina asks Ronald for a loan. A pretty hefty one, too.
How hefty are we talking?
A staggering $12,000.
Whoa, even for today, that's a huge amount of money, let alone back then. What was the loan for?
She claimed she was being blackmailed by 5 men who had assaulted her.
Blackmail, assault, this is getting intense. Did Ronald buy her story?
He did lend her the money, but even he said something felt off about the whole thing. Christina was vague about the details.
Vague details. Classic sign of a potential lie. Anything else that made Ronald suspicious?
She became really emotional whenever he tried to question her.
Playing the emotional card, another red flag.
And she even threatened suicide if her father found out about it.
Yikes, that's a pretty extreme reaction. I'm starting to see why Ronald felt uneasy. So, did Christina ever repay the loan?
Well, about a year later, out of the blue, she returns $10,000 in cash.
10,000, so not the full amount, but still, where'd she get that kind of money?
That's the thing, her explanation was super hazy.
Yeah.
Something about her blackmailers helping her.
Helping her? That doesn't sound right at all. Did Ronald press her for details?
He did, but she just avoided the questions. It gets weirder, though.
Weirder? How so?
He asked her to deposit the money into his account for him since, she worked at the bank.
Wait, seriously? He trusted her after all that?
It seems like it. Maybe he was just bewildered, who knows?
I can't imagine that level of trust after all the red flags we've already seen, and I have a feeling this money trail is going to get even more convoluted.
You're right to be suspicious. There's more to come on that later. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind back to that day when things took a very dark turn.
Oh, all right, back to the drama then. Lay it on me.
Christina was at Jack and Ronald's apartment. Ronald was out running errands.
I'm sensing trouble brewing here. What happened when he got back?
Well, he finds both Christina and Jack unconscious.
Unconscious? Oh boy, what did he do?
Now here's where Ronald's actions, even though they might have made sense at the time, become a big part of the mystery.
Go on, I'm intrigued.
Instead of calling for help right away, he spends hours trying to revive them himself.
Hours? Why didn't he call a doctor or something?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It certainly raises some eyebrows, and I'm assuming it gets even more complicated.
You bet it does. During those hours, he finds a note written by Christina.
A note? What does it say?
She claims she poisoned Jack and herself because he wouldn't marry her.
Whoa, hold on. A suicide pact. This is getting heavy. What did Ronald do with the note?
He hid it. Didn't want a scandal, especially back then.
That's understandable, I suppose. The stigma surrounding suicide in the 1940s was immense.
Yeah, societal pressure was no joke back then.
So what happened when Jack and Christina woke up?
That's when they decided to tell everyone they eloped. To cover it all up,
Eloped? Wait, to cover up the suicide attempt? That's a bold move.
And then they pressured Jack to actually go through with the marriage to make the lie believable.
They actually got married. Wow, talk about jumping from the frying pan into the fire. So, did their plan work? Did anyone suspect anything?
Christina's family did, especially her sisters. They were totally against the marriage.
I can imagine. A sudden, rushed marriage after a supposed elopement. They must have been suspicious.
They accused Jack and Ronald of drugging and manipulating Christina.
Drugging and manipulating. This just keeps getting more twisted.
They even claimed she had another boyfriend they liked more.
Another boyfriend. Okay, now we have a potential love triangle in the mix. This case just keeps getting more and more intriguing. So they did get married, huh? Even with the family's doubts.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a grand affair, though. Borrowed dress, the landlady's ring, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds more like a shotgun wedding than a romantic elopement. Did this whole charade actually smooth things over?
Well, not exactly. Remember that $10,000 Christina supposedly repaid?
Yeah, the one with the super sketchy explanation.
Turns out Ronald later finds out she never actually deposited it.
She lied. So the blackmailers didn't help her after all.
Nope, she totally fabricated the whole thing, even messed with the bank's records.
Hold on, so now we're talking about financial fraud on top of everything else. What was she thinking?
It definitely makes her seem even more unreliable, doesn't it? Makes you wonder what else she might have been hiding.
Yeah, lots of secrets swirling around here. So what did Ronald do when he found out about the fake deposit?
He confronted her, of course. She broke down, begged him not to tell anyone.
I bet that was a tense conversation. Ronald must have felt betrayed.
Yeah, especially after he'd gone out on a limb for her with that loan.
This whole situation is just a mess. And then, to make matters worse, comes the honeymoon.
The honeymoon. After all that, they still went on one.
Yep, and get this, they decided to spend it at Ronald's cottage.
Ronald's cottage. Hold on, did he go with them?
That's right, he did. They said it was because they had too much luggage.
Too much luggage. Really, that sounds like a pretty floozy excuse.
Right, it definitely fueled all the suspicions surrounding Ronald.
I mean, it does seem a little strange for the best friend to tag along on a honeymoon, don't you think? Especially with all the drama already swirling around them.
Totally. It paints a picture of Ronald as, well, a little too involved, to say the least. Do we know anything about what happened during this bizarre honeymoon? Any details from the sources?
Well, according to Ronald, Christina confided in him during the trip.
Confided in him about what?
She was having doubts about Jack's feelings for her.
Oh, wow. That's rough. It seems like she was feeling pretty insecure.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like there was a lot of emotional turmoil going on.
So we have blackmail, fraud, a rushed marriage, a suspicious best friend, and a very unhappy bride. What could possibly go wrong next?
Well, that's where things take a very dark turn. Ronald wakes up one morning to find Jack unconscious.
Unconscious. Again. What happened to him this time?
He had a head wound.
A head wound. Okay, this is starting to feel ominous. Was there any indication of how that happened?
And as if that wasn't bad enough, the cabin was on fire.
On fire. Seriously, this just keeps getting worse. Where was Christina during all of this?
That's the thing, she was gone. Vanished without a trace.
Gone. So now we've got an unconscious husband, a fire, and a missing wife. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. What did Ronald do?
He managed to get Jack out of the cabin and to safety.
Thank goodness for that, at least. But what about Christina? Did they find her?
They did, but it was too late. She was found drowned.
Drowned? But the cabin was on fire. How did she drown?
That's the strange part. They found her in a shallow pool of water near the cabin.
A shallow pool of water? How do you even drown in a shallow pool? This doesn't make any sense. Were there any signs of a struggle or anything?
None. And get this, they found codeine in her system.
Codeine. The plot thickens. So what did the authorities think about all of this? It seems pretty suspicious, to say the least.
Ronald immediately became their prime suspect. No surprises there.
I can't blame them. He's right in the middle of everything.
His strange behavior, the financial stuff we talked about, the fire, it all looked really bad for him.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like all roads lead back to Ronald. But did they have any hard evidence against him? Did they ever figure out what really happened?
That's where the coroner's inquest comes in. Time to try and untangle this mess of accusations and conflicting stories.
All right, let's get to the bottom of this. Spill the tea. What did the inquest uncover?
Well, there were some pretty shocking revelations during the inquest. Remember those suicide notes from before?
The ones Ronald found, of course. Did they shed any light on things?
Handwriting analysis confirmed they were definitely written by Christina.
So those were genuine. It seems she was really in a dark place. But did they provide any clues about what happened at the cabin?
Not really, but it was Jack's testimony that dropped the real bombshell.
Oh, Jack finally spilled the beans. What did he say?
He admitted that he and Ronald were lovers.
Wait, what? He and Ronald. So the best friend and the boyfriend were secretly together this whole time? Wow, that changes everything.
Right. It puts Ronald's actions in a whole new light.
It definitely explains why he was so involved, maybe even a little controlling. He was trying to protect his relationship with Jack.
Exactly. Imagine the pressure he must have been under, trying to keep his secret hidden while navigating this crazy situation with Christina.
And poor Christina, caught in this love triangle without even realizing it.
It's a classic case of hidden lives and societal pressures colliding with tragic consequences. Remember, we're talking about the 1940s. Being gay was a huge taboo back then.
Ronald was risking everything by being with Jack.
It makes you wonder if things would have been different if they had lived in a more accepting time. Imagine if they could have been open about their relationship. Maybe none of this would have happened.
That's a heavy thought. But it makes you appreciate how far we've come in terms of social progress.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that we still have work to do.
But back to Christina, we still don't know what truly led to her death.
Right. Did she find out about Jack and Ronald? Did she try to take her own life? Was there foul play involved?
The inquest didn't give us any clear answers. The jury ended up with an open verdict.
An open verdict. So even after all that, we're still left with more questions than answers.
Pretty much. We have a story of tangled relationships, hidden truths, and a young woman who died under very mysterious circumstances.
A real head-scratcher, just like you promised.
It's a real tragedy all around, isn't it? Christina's death, all those unanswered questions. And then you have Jack and Ronald, their love story, hidden from the world. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How different their lives might have been if society had been more accepting back then.
No more hiding, no more fear. Just imagine.
It's hard to fathom the weight of those societal pressures. Living a double life, always looking over your shoulder. No wonder Ronald was so determined to protect their secret.
And it seems their love was the real deal. I mean, even after all those years, after everything that happened, Jack left his pension to Ronald.
That's powerful, a testament to the depth of their bond.
And there's that detail about Ronald leaving his dog to Jack's young son. It's like a final, quiet gesture of their connection.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, love can endure.
This case really makes you realize how little we can truly know about people, doesn't it? What might seem normal on the surface could be hiding all sorts of complexities underneath.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder to be kind, to listen, to try and understand the stories people carry with them.
And looking back, it's pretty shocking to hear how homosexuality was talked about back then, during the inquest and all. The language is so jarring.
Yeah, it definitely highlights how much progress we've made.
And how much further we still need to go.
It's a good reminder to keep pushing for equality and understanding.
So, in the end, we're left with a story about love, loss, and the enduring power of secrets.
And the search for truth, which sometimes remains elusive.
We may never know exactly what happened to Christina Kettlewell, but I think her story serves as a reminder that the human heart is a complex and often mysterious thing.
What do you think this all means for our listeners? Any takeaways?
I think it challenges us to look beyond the surface, to question our assumptions, and to consider the unseen forces that shape our lives. And maybe, just maybe, it'll inspire us to be a little kinder, a little more understanding in our own interactions. What do you think?
I think that's a beautiful sentiment.
Well, we've reached the end of another deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explore the mysterious death of Christina Kettlewell.
Always a pleasure to delve into these intriguing cases.
Don't forget to share your thoughts and theories. We love hearing from you. And until next time, keep exploring.